Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Town Hall with Mr. Z. I just realized I did not give the 30-second countdown before starting the music. So I'm seeing people slowly trickle in. So I'm going to talk slowly for a minute while everyone catches up with us and the numbers climb. I hope you're all having a wonderful evening out there. We've been having busy days here at school, as I know you've seen. Got a special treat for you at the end as we head out of the town hall. I've got some special guests tonight, as well as Dr. O. We have a fairly short agenda, but things I think that are important to get us ready for the upcoming vacation, and hopefully a little bit of dialogue about what we hope after the vacation as well, at least in draft form. So we'll get your input on that. Again, just I hope that you get a chance to share this with others. If you watch it and you see a few other people, suggest they go to the podcast or to the now YouTube stream. You can go there as well. Zimplicity is where all the links to all of our videos are being held, so feel free to go there. If you're on the YouTube or the Facebook feed for this tonight, you'll look to the comment stream and you'll be able to pop your questions or comments in there, and I'll pop them up on the stream occasionally, including the one here that says, "Good evening, everyone." Just like that. So please feel free to participate with us as we have our town hall tonight. I know there's probably lots of questions and comments out there, and we're happy to receive them in either stream. I'm monitoring both, hopefully in the combined interface. With that, I'm going to bring in members of my Board of Trustees tonight on a couple of things. But first, let's welcome Kayla Bonka, our board chair. And along with her tonight, a member of the governance committee. Would you please welcome Mr. Peter Hootie? Peter, good evening.
Good evening, everybody. Great to see you.
Kay, why don't you lead off and share with us a message from the Board of Trustees as we head into the holidays here?
Yes, the board had an opportunity this past Saturday to kind of get into the festive spirit together and celebrate successes and hard work and look ahead into 2022. We're very excited. I continue to be honored to serve in this capacity and to be alongside such very talented and committed and professional colleagues. So we are continually thinking of how can we best further the vision and mission of the school through our work and committees, our meetings, and of course our collaboration with the school, and particularly Mr. Z. But as chair, I wanted to extend all of you a very, very warm wish and for not only staying warm during the break, but also being able to connect with loved ones near and far. I know it's a difficult time sometimes to be able to do that, but we, can get creative with technology and the ability to communicate across the miles. I do hope that you take some time for yourselves, you enjoy the time with your children. And we live in such a beautiful city. I had the chance to walk around Old Town yesterday a bit, and which continues to be my favorite neighborhood. And I just think that sometimes we need perspective about, this magnificent place we live in and the history and culture that comes with us. With that, it can give us some perspective and appreciation for our own blessings. So thank you all for being a part of this community. And last night, I think I may be giving away something that's going to be talked more about. And yes, my bracelet jingles and earrings. I was going to wear a crazy Santa hat thing, but I told Mr. Z, we'll keep it to the reindeers and the jingles here.
There you go.
Well, we had a wonderful concert last night. And on a personal note, I love music and I love singing. And I haven't had the chance to perform on stage with an actual choir in a little over a decade, and what a gift it was to be on stage, not only performing with other adults in the community, but with the high schoolers who are very talented and motivated. And it brought me back to those all those years ago of learning to appreciate music and celebrating the joy of the season in that way. So very excited to see the recording, to share with my own sons, and I do hope you all can bring the many gifts you have to the season, to one another, and our greater community, because it is a pretty awesome one. So thank you all.
So hint to the community, gather everybody around the TV for the end of the town hall tonight. And we'll give you a little bit of a teaser with the longer video to follow. Yours truly also had a nostalgic moment. Mine goes back a little bit further. It's been almost 40 years since I've been in an organized choir. And it was great to be up on stage singing as Kay was with the high schoolers for a couple of numbers and then a couple on our own as a community choir. We're very excited about that and had a great time last night. And it was a really fun time. Oh, and here's a comment from somebody saying the high school band concert yesterday was wonderful. Thank you for having us back at school. And it's good to remind ourselves that for our musical concerts, this season, we've been able to do a safe return to at least a limited but certainly wonderful audience that has been able to join us, parents of the kids, so that we could show our appreciation of their hard work and efforts during the course of the first semester. So exciting to be able to do that. And again, this is the final concert of really 3 concerts that have all brought amazing work by kids to the stage, not the least of which is their wonderful MC parts between the pieces where they talk about how it's connected and how they're learning the cascades on the stage. So it's really been marvelous to see the linkage. I mean, it was the overall theme last night was connected, and it really was in so many ways. All the different genres and types of music linked together, and kids talking about how they become better musicians, whether it's with their vocal cords or whether it's with an instrument of choice. They are all becoming practitioners and real thoughtful about their space. Going back to your earlier comments, though, Kay, as we talk about board membership and the board's work, Peter's here tonight along with me to share our thoughts about opportunity that is knocking. So, Peter, do you want to talk a little bit about what governance committee's been discussing?
Yes, with great pleasure. Hello, everybody. And thank you, Kay. You did sing very well. I think you're ready for a Grammy Award.
There you go.
You're very kind, Peter. Thank you. Hardly.
Yes, I'm on the governance committee, and we are now looking for members to school community members to consider running for Board of Trustees positions, which will be coming up next year. Exactly on January 27th, we'll have the appointment process starting, and the deadlines for the nominations for the elections will be in end of February 28th to be exact, and the voting will end on March 17th. So please, the board needs a lot of people with many qualifications. Don't feel that you may be underqualified. There are numerous committees which need various skills, as I mentioned. So please, it's a wonderful opportunity to learn more about the school, to contribute to its strategic development, and there are a lot of challenges ahead. As you can imagine, with the pandemic and so forth. So we need, if you can find a little bit of time and contribute to the school, we'll be great. We'll be forever grateful for your consideration. So please consider that. I've been on the board for a number of years, and I learned a lot. It's a great team that we put together. We complement each other well. So please do look into this opportunity, which will be presented at the beginning of next year.
Yep, and these are board members that'll actually start their year of service in July, taking over for departing board members. Every year we have a certain amount of turnover. And certainly our election cycle is always 2 positions every year that we're electing. And so Christmas becomes and the winter holidays become a wonderful time to reflect on what you may be willing to give back to the school in service to our Board of Trustees, representing all of our stakeholders in our ongoing work. So again, we really encourage consideration. Also, just to throw on your list is the new and aspiring board training that will be coming up in March, our next iteration. We had a nice group of people that I oriented to the board in November, and our next one will come up in early March. So you can actually do that and apply for a board position immediately following that, if that's what you have to wait for to find out about it. And again, we do the appointments first, where the board considers appointments, and then we follow that up with an election opportunity. If you haven't already, you can jump over to aswarsaw.org and go to the board page that's on our website. And you'll find lots of information about our board members, both here as well as those who are not present tonight. But if you look a little bit further down on that page, you'll see links to sign up for board membership and also offer your services to committees, which is another way of getting involved in the board. So our advancement committee, our governance committee, our finance committee, and our monitoring and risk management committee are all functional committees that encourage community involvement, particularly if you have skills and abilities specific to the functions of those committees. And I think, Peter, you're also on advancement with me, and
Yes.
Kay, as chair, kind of dabbles in all 4 of the committees at different times throughout the week. We meet on a regular basis, and there's opportunity to contribute in that way. And it's also a great way then to find out about how the board functions if you want to aspire to an actual board seat. We have 11/12 members. There's some bylaw language around that, but we really look forward to you potentially joining us. Thank you, Peter, and on behalf of the governance committee for all their efforts in continuing to strive to do this work and bring the right skills to the board. It's been a wonder what they've been able to pull off during COVID times of all things, right? I mean, we've been on video Zoom calls like this and continuing to discuss the issues right through this whole thing in the background, and I know everybody knows that.
It's been a wonderful experience and a real teamwork effort. So
Absolutely.
I think you'll be joining an incredible group of individuals that I had a pleasure and honor to work with for the last couple of years.
It's been amazing, absolutely. And this is 5 years running now with turnover of board members, and everyone has brought and added something to the mix. So it's been just a wonderful experience. Kay, take us out. Closing comments and wishes for the season. Anything to add?
I just blown away with this community, and I think we have kind of a slogan a bit from a trainer we worked with on the board in August: service above self. And there's many ways that we can serve, many talents and gifts that we have. So as Peter said, and I will echo, please consider joining us and giving your gifts, your background, your experiences to the board. And it's an amazing place to not only learn a heck of a lot about the inner workings of the school and help shape its future for years to come, but also to learn and to grow from so many talented colleagues. So with that, have a Merry Christmas, Happy Holiday in any way that you celebrate. Happy 2022, and we look forward to seeing you soon.
Peter, farewells.
Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, all the best to everybody. A lot of good health. We look forward to working with you. We really enjoyed this year, and we're looking for better things ahead in 2022.
Thank you both. Have a great evening.
Thank you. Take care.
All right. Well, we're going to move into kind of discussing the things that are on the table. And I know he's out there in the green room. So please welcome, as usual, my partner in crime, if they want to call it that. Dr. O is in the house. Good evening, sir.
I don't know everybody.
Hey, I'm going to run through a little bit of a summary here, and feel free to chime in where it makes sense. I thought I'd start with, just where things are at. In terms of our risk matrix, we're still kind of riding this medium to high line. We still live at a risk level 3. This twice a week testing was certainly related to that when we started bumping cases above 10,000. Today we reported 28K again, if I'm not mistaken. So no significant easing yet, although there is hopes that maybe we're seeing a crest. You could probably speak better to that than me. In terms of percent positivity, it's still hanging around 24% with the numbers I've been seeing. Our ASW cases, which on a weekly basis was one of the things we were going to keep track of. We during November really pushed into that a little bit higher average, particularly after the Thanksgiving break. But we've generally stayed in the 1 to 10 range. I did go back and compare, though, to the October and the March wave. And our peak number for the months were 40 in October and 47 in March. That's total cases for the month. and our November did not do us any favors at 57. So the one thing we can say is, looking at the data, and Dr. O and I have talked about this, vaccination absolutely works. Our cases have not been in the high school, which is almost a complete flip from our waves last year. And so this, in fact, in December, we have 0 high school cases. And I think November we had only 2 or 3. So it's just it's all kind of hit elementary, and most recently grade 6 is where we saw it, which is again unvaccinated population. The probable internal spread is still sitting in that 1 to 5 range. With our most recent 6th grader, it might have popped up into 6, but not by very far. We are conjecturing, that there's at least one in that 1 to 5 range. That all of these are probabilities; they're not definitive. There's no way for us to know for sure, but we do want to, say quite clearly we have seen instances of probable internal spread based on our contact tracing. Vaccination, I know I've reported high numbers for our upper school, in fact, in the 81% range. But when we take it as a full school number, we're still hanging at about 48%, and that's including staff. So staff are also about 80+% vaccinated, added to students, but then added to elementary and our other grade levels. Leaves us at just about 48% as a whole organization. Of course, our cohort division means that we're safer at the upper end, more restricted at the lower end, and certainly we've seen evidence for that. Anything to add, Dr. O, on this? And just kind of, this is what you're seeing on a daily basis looking across all the spectrums. Is this pretty accurate?
It's very accurate. And I think that it follows what we had expected in a way from Delta. We knew Delta is more transmissible. Okay, so I'm not surprised we have more cases. We actually have fewer cases than I expected, to be honest. And it doesn't seem that December would be the peak month. So I think November is the peak month, or has been the peak month. So I would have expected closer to 80 based on the kind of sheer just epidemiologic benchmarks, which means that, we are 30% lower than expected, which means that all the strategies that we put in place and tactics of the Swiss cheese, they actually work, and they significantly reduce the impact of the theoretical, at least, impact of Delta. So that's good news. The second bit is we're still catching those cases early, and I think out of those maybe 5 probably internal spread, I think all of them were kind of in situations that we were missing some of those Swiss cheese pieces. But otherwise, I think again the strategies work, and we are really managing this quite well. And importantly, we had, I was actually just this morning having a coffee with a friend who has 3 kids in the school in your school. And he said that his youngest first time since a year and a half is now on virtual learning because grade 6. So and I'm like, wow, this is amazing, that it's the first time that he's on virtual learning. So it's again it's very positive. Now the numbers in the community are high. Again, I think they're much higher than reported. We're still doing a good job reporting. I was having a conversation about completely different topics yesterday with Professor Muhammad Yunus, who is a Nobel Peace Prize laureate from 2006. I'm working with him on another topic related to his 3-0 initiative, which I will bring up to you, by the way, because it's an interesting one for the school as well. But he said that in Bangladesh, the government is completely manufacturing all the data for COVID. So it's and underreporting the deaths, for example, by 10 times. Here, I think we have very good data on deaths. The death rate, again, my expectation was that we were going to get to about 700 daily deaths. We're getting close. We're, I think, at 600. And then we should stabilize it and go down. And I expect, with the vaccination numbers hopefully going up, it will get better. I am disappointed with the approach for Christmas. I think this was the time to introduce the QR codes as the, now being widespread, used widely in most countries in the EU.
Oh, got it.
But unfortunately, they didn't. It's too bad, because I think this was the perfect time to say, okay, and now we're going to introduce the QR codes, and you have to have a valid QR code to enter any public space in Poland. Period. That's it.
Mhm.
No restrictions, no other things. You just have to be either vaccinated or negative or having a recovered status.
And we've seen that implementation in other EU countries.
Yeah, we've seen
There are
it.
countries surrounding us that have gone that step.
We've seen it. It works, and it's the only way, to be honest, to keep us going. I mean, it's, again, I always point to our OK for School app, which is it's a different system of QR codes, but it's exactly that.
Yeah.
It's an attestation system that makes sure that only the healthy ones can enter the school, and those who are not, they cannot. And that's what the government and the EU-wide initiative is. And for travel now, it's obviously widely used. And I think, again, it's the best system that could be used broadly by the whole government in the country. Hopefully it will. Hopefully it will be used. I think Omicron can be another trigger for that.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes, the new variant of concern.
And we're going to talk about Omicron a little bit at the end, so I'm going to come up on that in a second. Let me talk about what we've accomplished from a vaccination point of view. So we finished our nasal flu for children. We've just got a second group that has second dose this coming Saturday. It's a small group of those kids who had never had a flu shot before, therefore they need 2 doses to be fully protected from the flu. We completed our COVID booster for staff and others on November 24th. So we're very happy with that, and that's finished. And we have confirmation this afternoon, which is in eNotes, that our COVID vaccination for 5 to 11 will most likely take place on Wednesday, December 15th. We are keeping Thursday the 16th as a backup date just in case something goes wrong. But VaxMed is telling me they think they can have everything ready to go for our Wednesday date. The survey is still open. You can still sign up. We've got a good, robust start at it. So the numbers are good, and it's going to be busy, but it's going to be doable. The survey will maintain being open until Friday. And then at that point, I think I've got to lock down numbers to be able to send reminders on Monday. The appointments will be set by the hour. So we'll have them by starting at, I think we said 1 o'clock. If it's during school hours, we'll make sure that the students meet parents at the main entrance so that they can go into line for their vaccination. After school hours, it'll just be the normal vaccination. Come to the front main entrance. We'll sign you in and get you to the doctors that'll be here on staff in order to do the vaccinations. Parents must accompany kids to their vaccination appointment, because doctor will explain all the details to you before administering vaccination, and you'll need to be here to grant permission. This is for 5 to 11, so that's understandable. So yeah, we're well on the road. And then second dose will be Saturday, January 15th, roughly 4 weeks after the first dose, exclusive of the vacation. Doctor, one of the questions that had come up early on was, what was the percent of protection first dose for those that are traveling during the holidays? Somebody had quoted a number, and I don't remember what it was, but I wondered if you had any insight into first dose protection versus what we know second dose and 2 weeks out is.
Well, I don't think it was reported for kids, so it's hard to say. I think for adults it was north of 80%.
So there is still quite robust protection. And I do remember that the person that asked me said the doctor had told them that and suggested it was worthwhile to go ahead and get the first dose, even if you couldn't complete it before traveling, that there still is a degree of protection there.
They tested the adult dose, I think 7 days out after the after the injection, and it was north of 80%, 87, 86, somewhere in that range.
Yeah. Going back to our earlier slide, I just got a question here, and you and I have talked about this. Of course, we talk about it with crisis team all the time, is that when we find a positive, how far back do we generally look for potential exposure? And I want to make sure you give the numbers so I don't misquote them here. So in terms of when is the most likely time of exposure for a positive, how far before do we usually see that?
So since we are testing twice a week, we are catching those infections at a relatively early stage. So let's say somebody had a negative on Thursday and then a positive on Monday. Okay. They could have turned, obviously, they could have turned positive already on Friday. Possibly. But so we have to kind of say the worst case scenario would be Friday, okay? Which means that we have to go back between 3 to 5 days from the earliest possible positive date,
right,
to estimate the exposure time. So then we have this window, and it's going to be again. So if it was Friday, would be the first possible positive. Then we count Thursday, Wednesday, Tuesday, and then Monday, Sunday. So sometime between Sunday, Saturday-ish, and Tuesday would have been exposure time. It is also dependent on the initial viral load, obviously,
right,
and on the state of health of the person.
which really starts getting complicated.
That's right. And we are, we have to be always pragmatic and kind of say, what is the 80-20 rule in these cases? And again, the 80-20 rule is we do a kind of a 3-4 day estimate. And because we are testing frequently, we assume that probably this positive was closer to the Monday than the Friday.
Right.
Okay, so the earliest positive. So that's the, relatively pragmatic, yet still not mathematical approach, because it's so difficult to be mathematical here. But that's how I think pragmatically we can zero in on something that is more tangible than just saying, I don't know.
So the general summary is we look for exposure to the positive person about 7 to 10 days before. But we limit or narrow our look at who they potentially spread to the last negative.
A couple of, exactly. And this is the most important part, which is when this person could have been infectious.
Yes. And we also know that the testing, if it's asymptomatic, potentially is giving us 1 to maybe 2 days of advance notice of being infectious.
There you are.
Yeah. But that's not as hard and fast a rule, so we don't really go by that one. So we take those contacts prior to the last negative all very seriously.
Yes.
Yeah. There was a question here about boosters. This is just back to vaccinations. So yes, I do believe we will be looking at boosters, but Dr. O, when do we expect approval for 16, 17 or
boosters?
Boosters? I mean, some of them got them back in September. Would we expect that in like a February, March timeframe?
Probably, yeah.
And they are saying, we're going to get to this at the end, though. I'm going to save this for Omicron because that's the one thing we're going to talk about there. So let's hang on to that. Let me do the last bit here, which is our post-vaccination draft plan. And so Dr. O and I talked about this briefly. This is tentative. Crisis team is going to take this up in the next day or two to confirm it. and then they'll start prepping for it. But what I wrote in e-notes tonight is that we are projecting doing 2 full days of testing on Saturday and Sunday, January 8 and 9. This is for students to get ready to return to school on Monday. So we would project doing a full day of testing, appointment driven in our PowerSchool interface as we've done in the past. Drive through, you drop in, get tested, leave. Might be called back if there's a positive pool, but generally speaking, do it as quick and efficiently as possible. We know that some have travel plans that will take them right up to Sunday. So while we will continue testing on Monday, students who test on Monday would not rejoin school until Tuesday, just out of deference to the schedule and the disruptive nature of that throughout the day. We'd like to have, so we think we'll have the vast majority of students, and I've already heard from some parents who are already giving feedback on this, that they appreciate this because many have already crafted their travel plans to be back and be ready to start school and want school to start on Monday. I know that that's challenging from a trickle-in point of view, and we're certainly going to consider that, but there are many parents suggesting that they appreciate that. That being said, we know that there are going to be many who already have confirmed plans who won't be able to be back in time for the Saturday or Sunday. And so we will continue the testing Monday. After Monday, we'll just go back to our morning re-entry testing, wait for your results, and then go to class. And we will continue with twice a week testing, at least for that first week to 2 weeks. When we get back in January, until we have a generalized assessment of the current community spread status, what has happened during the break and what those numbers look like, and certainly the results of our own testing, reentry testing on that Saturday and Sunday. So that's the plan in a nutshell. It's not firm yet. We did want to get feedback from the community, so the feedback form is open, and there's a separate question in there specifically about this draft plan. That's a temporary question, so please feel free to answer it and give us your feedback on what you think about this plan for coming back to school in January. Given that we'll have a broad swath of first dose with our younger kids, as well as our high numbers of vaccination at the upper end, we think this is the moderate and appropriate approach to getting us safely back into school following the 3-week vacation. We know there's quite a bit of traveling, but they are not, at this point at least, putting restriction on travelers as they return, as long as they've done appropriate testing before getting on their flights. I'm not aware of any quarantines that are in place yet, but lots can change between now and the end of vacation. So while we will finalize this plan before we get into next week, we have to note that it could change during the vacation if the global situation changes. And of course, Dr. O and I will be touching base with each other, I think, throughout the vacation to say what is the current status and what do we need to do to potentially adjust. And so we'll be staying on top of that. And that, I think, takes us to Omicron. And I think we had talked about just a general summary of what you know and what you're hearing right now. There was lots of news that seemed to hit the wavelengths today. I know you've been following some of the preprint papers that are coming out, as well as your circles that are discussing this. Thoughts about Omicron and what we should be thinking about?
Yeah, I mean, we are kind of. I think this is going to be the typical COVID. Going forward, which means new variants coming in, and after a couple of years, we will just forget. We'll just kind of say, okay, so there's a new variant. So what? Okay, so there's a new variant. There will be a new vaccine, etc. It's a little bit like the flu. There are 4. They call this pandemic strains of flu every year. The WHO determines which strains are the pandemic strains. And they give out this information to the vaccine manufacturers sometime in February at the beginning of the year. Then the manufacturers race to produce the new vaccines for this current year for these specific 4 strains. and then we get the flu shots based on those 4 pandemic strains. And this is, I think, what will happen, and I always kind of alluded to it in the past. This is what will happen with coronavirus as well, which is we're going to have these prevalent pandemic strains, depending on also, I think, the geographic dynamics, because maybe at some stage there will be several strains which will be dominant, not necessarily one. So far we have seen kind of one strain dominating over the previous strain. This is a little bit what happened with Delta for sure. Now this is what's happening with Omicron. With Delta, it was a slow process. I think it was about 6 months before it became a dominant, prevalent strain. I think with Omicron, probably we're going to see a bit of a similar dynamic, maybe a little bit faster since it's a little bit more infectious. So based on the South African experience, they are seeing a significant jump in cases, kind of doubling, tripling every week, but not necessarily the same impact on hospitalizations.
This is the part I always wonder about is it seemingly just a natural course for viruses as they mutate, as they change, to become more prevalent and less deadly?
I think it's the interplay between the virus and our immune systems.
Yeah.
And you see, obviously, we know Omicron has all these mutations, more than 50 mutations. 32 of these are in the spike protein. But you look at those two charts, I mean, largely they're similar. And you have to think about the antibody. The antibody is much bigger than the virus.
Mm-hmm.
The antibodies, in a way, the lens through which the antibody looks at the virus is just a very kind of macro lens in a way. So the antibody doesn't look at these specific blue dots on the screen or the red dots on the screen. It looks at the shape. So that's why we're getting this immunity even against the Omicron with the current vaccines. Mm-hmm. And we know that, they alluded now that the 3 doses of Pfizer are effective at protecting us from the Omicron, at least from the severe course of disease while infected with Omicron. Mm-hmm. So again, this will be again. I think I'm starting to now see this in a way, the stability phase becoming more of a reality, which is, we are having some protection, innate protection from the SARS-CoV-2 family, current and future strains or variants. The variants may be becoming a little bit less deadly, but again, it's more related to our immunity than them becoming less deadly. We have a certain percentage of the population vaccinated. We have, and frankly, we probably won't get much more. I think at some stage, maybe a year from now, we're going to see a decline in the number vaccinated. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a decline in certain geographies or for certain populations, because we're going to see, because of the innate immunity and because of the sufficient, let's say, herd immunity. Again, I'm using this term less and less because I think it's just quite elusive. But the herd immunity, in a way that we will be sufficiently protected from this severe course of disease, and coronavirus will become just another, or SARS-CoV-2 virus will become just another of the upper respiratory tract viruses, which are a pandemic strain of viruses, just like the flu virus, and will be, causing just kind of mild to moderate to severe sometimes symptoms, but to a much lesser extent to hospitalization and death. Plus, we're going to have medications to treat.
Well, this was the other thing we were talking about the other day, is we're seeing a record number of what's the I'm tongue-tied tonight. The therapeutics coming on the scene. And I was talking to somebody in the States who's working in kind of a Midwestern region and suggesting that hospital administrators there had essentially decided to put all of their energy into therapeutics
Sure.
because it was just becoming too political to try to press further on vaccines. The people that were coming in were either about to be sick or were already sick. And so they've just invested in a big way in all available therapeutics because they think that's going to be their ticket to fight it in their regions where it's become so contentious to consider vaccination.
And I think that's where we have to get to this stable state. We have to have a good selection of therapeutics, which will be effective. Again, not 100%, but it's the same with anything else. In medicine, we have medications which work 90% of the time, 95%, 99% of the time. But if you have 1 million people sick, 99% means 1% of 1 million. That's 10,000 who will, unfortunately have a
more severe. Yeah.
But the point is to make it 1% and not 10%. The whole objective, both of vaccinations and of therapeutics, is to reduce again the burden of hospitalization, of the resource requirements to maintain and to get people out of this severe disease, not by using scarce resources like mechanical ventilators, but by drugs which arguably is much easier to procure
right
than ventilate.
Yeah.
So that's where we will get, and we have now therapeutics which kind of work early stage disease, late stage disease, and this is where we're heading again. I agree, to be honest, and I also always said it since the beginning. The vaccine obviously is an easy one, but a much less contentious approach and much cheaper approach, to be honest, is medication. Because in the end, you have to vaccinate for Poland 30 million people 3 times. Okay, that's let's say 100 million doses of the vaccine. Whereas it's only tens of thousands who require therapy.
Okay, I see what you mean. Well, and they added to the mix today too, and I know this is preprint, so it's not peer reviewed yet, but this whole idea that having your 3 shots plus having been sick with COVID was the best protection against Omicron. And that they're suggesting that there's actually now, which is the first time I've heard this, a positive interaction between vaccination and actually having a non-serious case of COVID. It was always one or the other. And the debate was natural immunity versus acquired immunity. Now it seems they're suggesting the two go hand in hand, which comes back to your point about maybe this is already becoming endemic and it's just a new flu virus that we'll have to both vaccinate for and get sick, probably with a lighter case, but get sick in order to have the robust protection that will start to diminish its impact on society.
That's it. I mean, again, it's in the end, it's an upper respiratory tract virus. It's not a super virus in a way. It's just another one, and it's a little bit like with the flu virus. Again, each of us had the flu many times in our lifetime. I get vaccinated every year for the last 15 years. I never had the flu for the last 15 years. Previously, I had the flu 3 times every season.
Oh, wow. Well, that's your exposure. That's the doctor's curse, right?
Doctor's curse. Yeah, doctor's curse. Maybe it's the exposure, maybe it's my immune system, but
we call it the teacher curse.
The teacher.
We have all these kids roaming around us all the time, so we were always getting like flu bugs all the time.
But to be honest,
go down.
The most likely explanation for me getting 3 times is that every time I was getting it with a different variant, with a different strain. Okay, so again, there were 4 pandemic strains, just like always. And some people were lucky enough to get just one, and maybe they were exposed to the same one 2 months later and they didn't get sick. And I just got exposed to every one of them probably. And I got sick 3 times, not 4, unfortunately, but 3 times regularly. That's a little bit how COVID will look like, and some of us will get sick 3 times a year, and we're going to be out for 7 days. Some we will get vaccine and still get sick.
Yep.
Some of us will get vaccine 3 times every year and will not get sick. Some of us will get sick much less than hadn't we died. Some of us will end up in a hospital and will get the drugs which will help us survive. And that's it. This is where we're heading.
But to be clear, we're not there yet.
We're not there yet. This is where
right now. There is still this statistical chance of severe consequences that will keep us doing the protection layer. So I've got the question about, as we move towards endemic phase, will we discuss masking our children to be parents' choice? And I do say yes, at some stage, that is likely where we will move to. And we will see some families that will choose to continue to mask, as we saw post-Asia after SARS. We saw a trend. I was in China at that time, and we saw right after SARS that people just started wearing masks in subways and crowded spaces all the time. They've been wearing masks in Southeast Asia since I want to say 2005.
Yeah.
And so this is 15 plus years of people who are by choice wearing masks in China right now. And that's largely an outgrowth of bird flu and SARS when they were rolling through those regions. So, Leah, to answer your question, yes, I do think that we will get to this phase. It's just we're not there yet because we don't have broad availability of the therapeutics. They're not fully tested, nor do we have a lot of clinical experience with them. And I would presume, Dr. O, we've still got a few more variants on the horizon.
We have more variants. We still have a lot of excess deaths. We still have a lot of people hospitalized. We still haven't got a grip on this one. So, and again, countries who have thought this is it are now suffering. Unfortunately, I think we are going to be suffering as well after, in the new year, because again, it's just beyond my imagination why why we're in a restricted lockdown kind of phase for between the 15th and the 9th, except New Year's Eve, as if SARS-CoV-2 knew that it's New Year's Eve and it has to go to sleep, for 24 hours. It doesn't know that it's going to be there, so again, it's just I don't understand, and I don't know why there, this these types of restrictions and then lack of restrictions are being introduced while having again a perfectly valid tool like the QR code.
Yeah,
which is a
quick and simple assessment, right?
Quick and simple, and say, look, you're free to go, and I think maybe having. Again, having mandates to vaccinate, as in some countries, I think it's a tough one. It's a tough one to impose politically. And if I were the Minister of Health, I would probably still be thinking how to approach this. But QR codes would be the first thing I would have introduced even a year ago, even before the EU said it. I would say, okay, this is it, and this is the best way without any lockdown, just like what we did at ASW. You're either vaccinated, but best, I think, is our approach, which is you are vaccinated and have a negative test.
Yeah.
Because this is what protects. And this is, by the way, we were talking about test to stay and we introduced test to stay. And the government basically just said now that they're introducing test to stay now for household members of a positive case.
Oh, wow. Here we go. We just hit another prediction. We win again.
They basically said they don't have any implementation tools yet for this, but they said household members of a positive test would need to test negative to have a QR code.
Yep. And then they get to roam around until their next
Stay.
test.
That's
Yep.
essential, just to stay.
That is. And we've talked about it. This was our prediction 20 months ago, is testing was the key. That's when we connected with Dr. Mina and all of his research and backdrop, and we said testing, testing, testing. And we still haven't got our dollar a day test, but I do value that more and more of our families are purchasing and using home tests to check their status, that they are actively doing that. On the Thanksgiving weekend, at least 3 of our cases were identified by home tests first.
Look,
And
this is-
that is such a huge factor. If we can just push that out. President Biden in the United States, for the first time, added free testing
to
to
his-
the mix of U.S. strategies to get people tested. And we have all the data to demonstrate that that's a key factor to safety and reducing spread, that people can take care of themselves and check their status before heading off to work or school.
Look, I mean, it's in a way, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to think about to get to this conclusion, because we have done it since World War II as society. And first time surveillance testing was used in a pooled methodology, by the way, was syphilis testing among soldiers during World War II.
There you go.
And then we used it for, HIV, we used it for Ebola, we used it for plenty other infectious diseases.
Yep.
Right? And suddenly came SARS-CoV-2 and we're like, oh, really, testing? No. Why should we test? We just test the symptomatic one. No, stupid. You do surveillance testing just like in World War II, I mean, it's a no-brainer. And I'm still... again, it's also not rocket science to develop a test. Maybe not a dollar test, but like a $3 test, not rocket science, probably.
Yep.
So I am surprised, to be honest, that every government has not invested and told one of the medical device manufacturers, here's a grant for $1 million, develop a test. We will fund your manufacturing facility, and you have to produce 30 million every month.
There you go.
And we're going to pay you $2 for this, or $1 at cost.
There you go. And it was proven, because the development cost of that and the production cost of that is far lower than a vaccine.
Sure, exactly.
like significantly lower when you think about the storage cost.
And politically, frankly, nothing to be concerned about, because you're not injecting anything into anybody. You're not forcing anybody to take something that supposedly maybe is not tested for 10 years like previously. It's a test, almost non-invasive, basically.
Yeah.
So there you are. I mean, again, it's I don't know. It's a lot of it is quite simple stuff, and yet nobody has done it. So it's for me, it's a good learning, I think, in general for human beings. And to be honest, my biggest from the start, my biggest disappointment was with the WHO and how WHO handled it. Because I think, frankly, this was the WHO mandate to say this at the beginning of it. Guys, every government should now manufacture as many tests as there are people every week.
Yep.
This is it. This is the only way until this period. You must do it. If you don't, you come to me and explain yourself in front of the 180 other nations.
There you go. But we wax politically, and we know that that's the problem with sometimes policy, is that politics gets wrapped up in it. That's for sure.
It's it's a fascinating story, and but anyway, I mean, moving forward, let's still be vigilant. We're not over yet. Again, you guys are seeing. Again, we're at peak. We're close to historic highs, in terms of the cases and in terms of deaths. So again, this is not yet the time to take off our masks anywhere, in school, in store, wherever you are. keep your mask on, stay away from crowds. Yeah, I mean, this is it. It's still the time, unfortunately.
Yep. And the layers are
And
proving
the layers, yeah, the layers.
they're
work.
not perfect. They were never expected to be.
They're never expected.
But together, taken together, and if we all do a good job of following them, we protect each other.
Absolutely.
We do keep those numbers at a lower level than they otherwise might be.
Absolutely.
All right. So there is optimism on the horizon. We seem to get a mix of that every day, but there's always an ability to look forward and say we see where this can all begin to become a bit more normal for us, and therefore we can become a bit more normal. And we look forward to that day. We've certainly seen tastes of normalness in our activities, and the fact that we're in school, and the fact that we're continuing to drive this forward. And so for everyone's effort in regard to that, we thank you. And we thank you for your acceptance and participation, your feedback, and your dilegence. Sir, I thank you so much.
Thank you, John, for your leadership, because I think it's leaders like you who make a difference during a time like this. So thank you for this. And I say it to everybody, all my friends, all my colleagues, people I know, people I don't know, that I am so privileged to work with leaders like yourself, who are, making this pandemic something to manage and something to just, grab the bull by the horns, and, just live with it and continue doing what you're doing best, which is giving the best education to the kids.
And I thank you for that. And as I've stated many times before, it has only been made possible by having wonderful partners like you to give us the insight into the information. And I know that you and I have both reached out to dozens of other partners around the world in helping to support this action. But certainly you helped trigger the potential for us to be able to do this. And for that, thank you. Want to wish you a most wonderful holiday season. We all get to take a break after next week, and I hope that the new year brings wonderful things for you, as I hope for our entire community. We won't be back together town hall until January, so I'll use this as the opportunity to say Merry Christmas, ho, 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 Happy New Year, and hugs to everyone as we enter into the best parts of the holidays.
And also from my side, Merry Christmas to you, John, your family, and all the families from ASW, all your extended families here in Poland or abroad. And, may you have a healthy and happy holiday. And, let's continue what we have been doing in 2022 and, hope for the best and plan for what's coming, and have excellent plans to really, really have another excellent year.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Bye.
And with that, the special treat is upon us. So please join me with a snippet of our high school concert taking us out tonight. Thank you all for joining me. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your continuing energies. Before I get away, though, a big thanks. I wrote about it in e-notes today, but I want to say it out loud. PTO, thank you for all of the decoration around the school. It is absolutely brilliant. We're enjoying it tremendously. I'm going to walk out of here through the lights as I go home. It's just been amazing. And a big thanks to our facility and maintenance department. They really need a big smile and pat on the back if you see them around school for all of the decorating that they've been doing to make this school just sparkle with the holiday spirit. So thank you to all who have contributed to that. And I know there are probably many secretaries and other support staff that have helped as well in decorating around the building, in classrooms and hallways, getting ready for programs and performances, our theater staff, our performing and visual arts, Nicholas and Kasha and all the team down there, HR and the booster work that they did and getting things organized, my secretary Beata and all of the work that she's doing to get us into the holidays. For staff, next week, our internal celebrations, Friday, and then next week kickoff, and all of the people that are helping to make those come together. My thanks and hearty congratulations for these wonderful things that we'll all enjoy together. So with that, I will sign off, and here is your special treat.
There.